Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Confusing, either city to different.
Yeah.
Okay. Good evening. This is the May 3rd Seminole County Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. My name is Carissa Lawhon, chairman for tonight's meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This board is a 7-member board appointed by the Board of County Commissioners. A quorum has been established to hold tonight's meeting. Public hearing items acted upon by this board are then referred to the Board of County Commissioners for further discussion. Board members present tonight are myself, Vice Chair Dan Lopez, Commissioner Richard German, Commissioner Mike Lorenz, Commissioner Steve Smith, and Commissioner Walter Grundorf. Staff present tonight are Rebecca Hammock, Development Services Director, Mary Moskowitz, Planning and Development Manager, Desmond Morrell, I just lost him again. Look at there. Senior Assistant County Attorney, Jim Potter, Professional Engineer, Development Review, Doug Robinson, Principal Planner, Joy Giles, Senior Planner, Annie Silloway, Senior Planner, and Stacia Henry, Clerk to the P&Z Board. Tonight's meeting will go as follows. Staff will introduce each item. The applicant will then present the item. Audience members wishing to speak will then be heard. If you wish to speak, please make sure that you complete a comment card and give it to the clerk prior to speaking. When your name is announced, approach the podium to speak. Speakers should provide their name and address for the record. And if you need a comment card, you haven't filled one out yet, comment cards are located in the front lobby. Audience speakers should restrict their comments to information directly relating to the item being heard. Audience speakers will have 3 minutes to speak or 6 minutes if representing a group. The board may ask questions of the speaker. After all speakers have been heard, public comment will be closed. The applicant will be given a chance for rebuttal. Any items shown, such as videos, presentations, pictures, or maps, must be left with the clerk for the public record. Items shown from electronic devices should be emailed to the clerk. A motion will then be made and seconded. Board discussion may incur and conclude with a vote. I will request a roll call vote for any split votes. The first item on the agenda is proof of publication. Do I have a motion?
You have a motion?
Do I have a motion? That was the question. Is that your motion? Okay. And then if you were sitting in my chair again.
Yeah.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. We'll then do an approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion for that one?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay. Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. We'll begin with our technical review items tonight, starting with the Towns at Greenleaf preliminary subdivision plan. Annie?
Good evening. Annie Silloway, Senior Planner with Development Services. I will be presenting Towns at Greenleaf, the PSP. The applicant is requesting approval of the Towns of Greenleaf preliminary subdivision plan. The PSP proposes 33 townhome lots on 6.71 acres with a maximum density of 7.86 dwelling units per net buildable acre. The subject site was rezoned to R3A, multiple family dwelling, and a future land use amendment to medium-density residential for the proposed subdivision, and was approved by the Board of County Commissioners on February 14th, 2023. The PSP complies with all the conditions of the R3A multiple family dwelling, Chapter 35 of the Seminole County Land Development Code, and the Conceptual Plan and Development Order. Site access is from State Road 426, and all internal roads will be private, and Seminole County is the utility provider for water and sewer. Staff recommends approval of the preliminary subdivision plan for the Towns at Greenleaf subdivision, and that concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you. Questions of staff? Is the applicant present?
Yes.
Would you like to speak?
Chris Warshaw with England Timms Miller, 1411 Edgewater Drive, Orlando, Florida. I don't have anything else to add. Super excited for the project. I'm here to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Any initial questions of the applicant? Okay, seeing none, is there any member of the public who'd like to speak in favor or in opposition to this item? Okay, in that case, board discussion, questions of the applicant or staff? Okay, do I have a motion?
Make a motion to recommend the approval of the preliminary subdivision plan for the towns of Greenleaf subdivision.
I'll second.
Okay, motion, second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And the motion carries. The next technical review item that we'll hear is the Hidden Woods Reserve preliminary subdivision plan. Joy Giles.
Yes. Good evening. Joy Giles, Senior Planner for the Planning and Development Division. The applicant is requesting approval of the Hidden Woods Reserve preliminary subdivision plan on approximately 9.42 acres, located approximately a quarter-mile west of the intersection of Virginia Avenue and Shepherd Street. The PSP proposes 22 single-family residential lots with a maximum density of 2.4 dwelling units per net buildable acre and a minimum lot size of 8,050 square feet. The internal road will be privately owned and maintained by the HOA, and utilities will be provided by Seminole County. The PSP complies with all conditions of Chapter 35 of the Seminole County Land Development Code and the Hidden Woods Reserve Development Order that was approved by BCC on December 24th, 2021. Pardon me. Staff recommends approval of the Hidden Woods Reserve preliminary subdivision plan as requested. Thank you.
Questions of staff? Is the applicant present?
Thank you, Chair. Rebecca Wilson, 215 North Eola Drive, here on behalf of the applicant, and we agree with the staff report and here to answer any questions.
Okay, very good. Any questions of the applicant? Okay, any member of the public would like to speak in favor or in opposition to this item? I don't have any cards. Okay, in that case, board discussion or a motion? Board discussion or a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary subdivision plan for the Hidden Woods Reserve subdivision containing 22 single-family residential lots on 9.42 acres, located approximately 1/4 mile west of the intersection of Virginia Avenue and Shepherd Street.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that motion carries as well. Next, we'll hear public hearing items, but first let me remind everyone again, members from the public that wish to speak must fill out a comment card and give it to the clerk prior to speaking. With emphasis, Stacia wrote here. Wait until your name is announced, then approach the podium to speak. Speakers should provide their name and address for the record. And again, comment cards are located out in the front lobby. So with that, we'll move to item number 3, storage space Altamont. Annie's up again.
Good evening again. Annie Siloy, Development Services Senior Planner. I will be presenting storage space Altamont PD rezone. This is to consider a rezone from PD plan development to PD plan development for a proposed self-storage facility on approximately 6.85 acres, located approximately a quarter-mile west of U.S. Highway 1792 at the corner of Anchor Road and Merritt Street. On June 9, 2009, Seminole County approved the Anchor Road Plan Development Rezone and Future Land Use Amendment consisting of C3, general commercial and wholesale permitted uses, and outdoor storage on the subject site. Per Section 30.449 of the Land Development Code of Seminole County, if substantial development has not occurred within 8 years after approval of the Master Development Plan, the plan development shall expire and must be reviewed again by the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners. The applicant did not submit for a final development plan or engineered site plan within this time period, therefore the PD has expired. The applicant is limiting the allowable uses to only allow a self-storage facility and prohibiting outdoor storage on site. In order to achieve compatibility with the adjacent residential subdivision to the west, the applicant has agreed to the following conditions: landscape buffers around the entire portion of the site, and more detailed buffer components will be defined at the time of final development plan. Along the west portion of the site, there will be a 15-foot landscape buffer with a 6-foot-high PVC fence, as well as an additional 35-foot tree preservation area. All of the proposed site lighting will be fully shielded, and the light poles shall not exceed 16 feet in height. The building will include architectural trim design on portions of the parapet as shown on the architectural renderings submitted by the applicant, and will be placed in the development order as Exhibit C. Windows will only be placed facing Merritt Avenue and Anchor Road. There will be no windows facing west towards the existing residential neighborhood. The applicant is varying from the off-street parking requirements of Section 30.12214, manufacturing concerns and warehouses, which requires one space for each 1,000 square feet of building plus one space for 2 employees on the largest shift. Instead, the applicant has provided a parking justification study showing that the parking calculation of one space for each 10,000 square feet of building plus one space for 2 employees on the largest shift is adequate parking for the self-storage use. The applicant's justification is based on the ITE, Institute of Transportation Engineers, Code 151 for mini warehouses, and that the use would generate a low traffic impact. Per the ITE Code 151 for mini warehouses, the use during the peak parking demand is between the hours of 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. and is estimated at a maximum of 8 vehicles entering the site and 8 vehicles exiting the site. And the applicant is proposed site is providing 13 spaces for the 118,932 square foot building. The applicant has provided an example similar to the proposed project located at 4912 John Young Parkway in Orange County, and with 3 stories and 30,000 square foot storage building. The parking requirements for Orange County for mini warehouses up to 200 units requires 4 spaces located at the entrance, and this facility provided a total of 9 parking spaces. Water and sewer will be provided by the City of Castleberry. Ingress and egress to the site will be on to Merritt Street, classified as a local road, and the second access is proposed as an exit and right turn only onto Anchor Road, classified as an urban minor collector. Merritt and Anchor Road do not have improvements programmed in the 5-year capital improvement program. There is an existing sidewalk along Merritt Street and Anchor Road, and the developer will be required to repair and/or replace a broken or non-ADA compliant sidewalk along Merritt Street and Anchor Road. The proposed project is located within the Gee Creek drainage basin and has limited downstream capacity. Therefore, the site will have to be designed to hold 25-year, 24-hour total retention unless system capacity can be confirmed. A community meeting was held on January 25th, 2023, and 6 people attended. And the applicant will be providing the required 25% open space, and the proposed plan development zoning classification is compatible with the adjacent properties with existing industrial developments in the area, which are located within the City of Castleberry. The proposed development is in keeping with the surrounding warehouse uses and will not exceed the previously approved floor area ratio of 0.40 that was approved in 2009. The site and the proposed plan development will generate minimal demand for roadway and utility capacity. Staff finds the rezoning request to plan development to be consistent with the comprehensive plan and the Seminole County Land Development Code. I also wanted to state for the record that I received a mailed letter in opposition of this project from Susan E. Parker at 303 Salina Drive, Altamont Springs. This letter was emailed to the Planning Commission on May 2nd. Another letter in support of this project I received was from Grace Lias at 317 Salina Drive in Altamont Springs, and was received on May 3rd and was distributed to the Commission this evening. Staff recommends the Board of County Commissioners adopt the proposed ordinance enacting a rezone from PD Plan Development to PD Plan Development and approve the associated development order and master development plan for 6.85 acres located a quarter mile west of 1792 at the corner of Anchor Road and Merritt Street. Thank you.
Thank you, Annie. Questions of staff? I do have a quick one. Annie, how many parking spaces were approved under the original PD in 2009?
That I don't know. I think it might have been one space per 200 square feet, but I'm not positive
For
on that.
200?
Yeah, I'm not sure, though. I would need to pull those plans.
Just wondering if they were asking for a reduction from that. Okay. Is the applicant present?
Good evening. For the record, McGregor Law, 215 North Eola Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. We concur with staff's recommendation for approval, and we appreciate the work that staff has done with us on getting us to this point. We believe that the buffering, the landscape buffering around this property, and our working with the community will ensure compatibility of the project with the surrounding community. We're here to answer any questions that you have. We have our project engineer here as well if you have any technical questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any initial questions of the applicant? No? Then we can begin public comment. I have one person who would like to speak in support of this item, and Connie Thomas. Would you come up to the microphone, please? Can you state your name and address for the record?
My name is Connie McMillan Thomas. I live at 519 Peachtree Lane, Altamont Springs, Florida, 32701. After hearing the completed plans tonight, I also represent the Granada South Homeowners Association. We would like to voice our approval for the plans. Our main concern was a buffer and a divider between the properties and the commercial development for obviously safety and aesthetic reasons. And the developer has agreed to all our suggestions. So I would just like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to voice our approval.
Okay, thank you very much, ma'am.
You're welcome. I do have, am I allowed to ask one question?
Sure.
I noticed he said there would be a 6-foot fence. What type of fence?
It's going to be a 6-foot-high PVC fence.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Stacia, do we have any other comment cards on this one? Okay, very good. Would any other member of the public like to speak in favor or in opposition to this item? No? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Would the applicant like to say anything else? Okay, then board members. Board discussion, questions, or motion?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend the Board of County Commissioners adopt a proposed ordinance enacting a rezone from PD plan development to PD plan development and approve the associated development order and master development plan for 6.85 acres located approximately a quarter mile west of US 1792 at the corner of Anchor Road and Merritt Street.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, very good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, hearing none, that motion passes. We'll move to item number 4, the Mustang Way rezone. Joy's up again.
Yes. Joy Giles, Senior Planner, Planning Development Division. The applicant is requesting approval of the Mustang Way rezone from A1 agriculture to R1AA single-family dwelling for a single-family residential subdivision on approximately 18 acres located east of Notting Pines Way, approximately a quarter mile south of Red Bug Lake Road. The applicant proposes to develop a single-family residential subdivision in compliance with the R1AA zoning classification with a minimum lot size of 11,700 square feet and a minimum lot width of 90 feet. The subject property has a low-density residential future land use designation, which allows a maximum density of 4 dwelling units per net buildable acre. As you can see from the surrounding densities map, which was actually just provided prior to the meeting, for some reason it didn't make it into the packet. You can see that the site is surrounded by single-family residential subdivisions. The properties adjacent to the west and north were developed in compliance with the R1AA zoning classification, with a minimum lot size of 11,700 square feet, and the subdivision adjacent to the east has a PD zoning classification, with a minimum lot size of 9,000 square feet. The property adjacent to the south is owned by Seminole County, and it operates as a water treatment plant. The property does contain floodplain and wetlands in the southern portion of the site boundary. A 15-foot minimum, 25-foot overall average wetland buffer will be required around all, around all post wetlands, and all post-development wetlands and floodplain will be required to be placed in a conservation easement at time of final plat. Sorry, I'm losing my voice tonight. The property is located within the Seminole County Utility Service Area and will be required to connect to public utilities. Okay. Access to the site is proposed from Nodding Pines Way. More specifically, access is proposed from Lot 16 of the Sutter's Mill Unit 2 plat, also known as the Nodding Pines Estate subdivision. The developer proposes to replat and redevelop Lot 16 into a 60-foot wide access road with a 15-foot wide buffer track on the north and a 15-foot wide buffer track on the south, in order to prevent existing lots 15 and 17 from becoming corner lots. The subject 18-acre site is comprised of 6 undeveloped parcels, none of which have direct access onto a county standard road. There's a 15-foot wide ingress-egress easement known as Mustang Way that runs along the north perimeter of the Howe Creek Park subdivision. However, the easement is not wide enough to provide access that meets county standards for road width and pavement for a subdivision. Therefore, access to the site, or I should say, therefore, the only viable access to the site would be from Nodding Pines Way. The requested rezone from A1 to R1AA has been evaluated for consistency with the Seminole County Comprehensive Plan and the Land Development Code. Under Policy Flu 17.5, evaluation criteria of property rights assertions, staff must determine if the requested use is a reasonable use of the property, providing compatibility with abutting properties, and is consistent with generally accepted land use planning principles. The requested R1AA zoning classification is compatible with the surrounding trend of development in the area, which consists of single-family residential subdivisions developed under the R1AA zoning classification. Under Transportation Policy TRA 2.217, Local Street Connectivity, the county will encourage redevelopment and infill properties to access from existing local roads where feasible, in lieu of creating additional access points on collector or arterial roadways. The proposed access from Nodding Pines Way is consistent with the aforementioned policy by creating interconnectivity from an existing local road. Under Policy Flu 1.1, Environmentally Sensitive Lands, the county shall continue to regulate and preserve environmentally sensitive lands such as floodplain and wetlands. As mentioned earlier, all post-development wetlands must maintain a 15-foot minimum, 25-foot overall average wetland buffer. All post-development wetlands and floodplain will be required to be placed in a conservation easement at time of final plat. And any impacts to wetlands must be approved first by the Department of Environmental Protection. In compliance with the Seminole County Land Development Code community meetings procedures, the applicant did conduct a community meeting on February 6, 2022. Staff recommends that the Board of County Commissioners adopt the ordinance enacting a rezone from A1 to R1AA on approximately 18 acres located east of Nodding Pines Way, approximately a quarter mile south of Red Bug Lake Road. And that concludes my presentation.
Questions of staff?
Yeah, Joey.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't see you, sir.
I was just curious about the, when Nodding Pines Way enters onto Red Bug Lake Road, is there some type of a deceleration lane there? Is there anything turning into that subdivision?
And so, Jim, I'll let you take that from if there's going to be required.
Believe that there, and I'm sure that many people here probably know way better than me on this one, I believe there is a turn lane coming into the subdivision.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions of staff? Joy, how many lots are they asking for? Or I saw someone who had been to the community meeting write something about 60, but is that true?
Well, at this point in time, we don't have a concept plan because it's a straight rezone. So we're not quite sure, but, it's net buildable, so all the wetlands and floodplain will be excluded from the calculation, as well as any internal right-of-ways.
Okay. Are you able to also show us on that map, because the lots aren't delineated there, can you kind of show us what access they would be giving up and where they propose to bring access in?
Yeah. So in your packet, you should have the Notting Pines Estates existing Lot 16 map. So currently, it has a single-family residential home on it. So this is the proposed lot that would provide access, and that would be right here on the aerial, or actually right there.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay.
So is that lot presently vacant?
No, it currently has a home on it.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe it's page 81, 81 in your agenda packet. Yes.
Do you happen to have a concept plan, or do they have?
The applicant has not provided one to us yet.
But the only access will be through that replatted lot 16, is that?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
That'll be the only access?
Yes.
And how many lots will that access, what is probably the proposed number of lots?
At this point, we don't know. That might be something that the applicant would be able to answer for you. We have not been provided a concept plan, so we're not sure at this point.
Is your microphone on,
I heard it.
Commissioner German?
This is not on?
You sound loud enough to me, but I'm closer to you. Okay.
I didn't want people to hear me.
Very good. Is the applicant present?
Good evening again. For the record, McGregor Love, 215 North Eola Drive. We concur with staff's recommendation for approval. And just for clarification, because I know from the community meeting and from speaking with folks that there's concern about this, project and this use, and I just want to clarify, what question we're asking tonight. And the board knows this, but you're not being asked to approve a single-family subdivision tonight. If that were the case, you would have seen a preliminary subdivision plan on your agenda, and that would be where we would sort of lay out exactly how many lots there'll be, and kind of how the configuration of the subdivision would be laid out. Really, the only question before this board tonight is whether R1AA zoning is consistent with the underlying future land use, and unquestionably it is. There are still challenges, of course, and they're laid out in the staff report. You'll see, certain items that will have to meet county code at final engineering. Those will come, and if this property ever is developed as a single-family subdivision, the preliminary subdivision plan will come back here. But the only question before this board tonight is R1AA zoning consistent with the underlying future land use? And it is. And on the replat issue, that will be before the Board of County Commissioners for approval as well, concurrently with your recommendation. But I'm here to answer any questions. I did speak with the engineer, and at this point, their latest concept plans show around somewhere less than 40 units. But again, that's not been finally determined.
Did you meet with the public?
Yes.
Okay. How many people showed up?
There was a substantial number of people, I would say around 40 or so, were at the meeting.
Did you address their concerns?
I attempted to address their concerns. The part of the issue is this notion that the application was, in fact, for a subdivision, and that we knew more at this stage than we actually do. Right now, it's just a rezoning, and, you know, we provided the information that we had that was sort of final in our application, but because it's just a rezoning, at this stage, there's very little in terms of finalized plans. When we come forth with a preliminary subdivision plan, that'll of course be a much different story. We'll have much more fleshed out plans. But I understand the desire to see exactly what's going on this property. I really do. But we just don't have it at this stage, at the rezoning stage.
Thank you.
Any other questions of the applicant? Then we'll open it up to public comment. Stacia, are there any other comment cards? I'd like to remind everyone once again that if you do want to speak tonight, you need to fill out a comment card located in the lobby prior to joining us at the podium. And I do not have anyone here that wants to speak in favor. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak in support of this item? Okay. Then I will call, what we'll do is I have quite a few comment cards here. So what we'll do to save everyone time is I'll call the first three names that are going to be coming up, and you can kind of start forming a line, maybe along the wall, and maybe we can move it a little bit faster for everyone that way. The first one will be Lila Braswell. Next will be Michael St. Lawrence. And then Joseph Hurley.
Hi, I'm Leela Braswell, 1012 Notting Pines Way, Castleberry. Lived there for 41 years in my house, worked hard to pay for it, been a good citizen of Seminole County, worked hard as an RN at all the local hospitals. And to this gentleman that was just speaking, it's just a rezone. He has no other, just a rezone. Quote, it's our lives. It's a change in our neighborhood, in our community, and the integrity of our development. And I just want you to consider all of that and to vote no. For them to tear down a structure on our street, to open it up to a whole nother neighborhood. As the gentleman said, they don't know how many homes, they don't have any further, it's just a rezone. It's just our lives, it's our community, it's what we've all worked hard for. And then for this just to be considered just a rezone is really, it's demoralizing. It's our lives, our livelihoods, we've spent it there. We know our neighbors, and we're on a busy street. They may downplay how busy our street is, that there's an exit lane into our neighborhood, there's a traffic light. There's also Redbug Lake Park. There's also Redbug Lake Elementary. We are traffic bound. Now, there are times a day we may not be, but the important times when people are trying to get to work, get home from work, you cannot get through. Are people cutting through our neighborhoods to get to Redbug Elementary School? So I just would like you to... the police pointed that out to us, that they've directed the parents to come through our neighborhood. And so we have traffic flying up and down. Notting Pines Way is a straight street, and people even our neighbors zoom down it. If we have more homes zooming down it, and I'm at the end closer to the Red Bug entrance. And when we moved in there, it wasn't to live on a street like like Red Bug Lake Road. And that's what Notting Pines Way would turn into. It would turn into being like living on Red Bug Lake Road or 436 or 1792, rather than a community, rather than our neighborhood. So I'm definitely opposed to this and to destroy our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Braswell. And I understand your concerns. I don't think that they meant to be offensive by saying just to rezone, but it goes to the scope of what we're allowed to consider here tonight. So that was, I think, why the reference was made. But I understand. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. St. Lawrence.
He discussed the meeting of February 6th. Oh, Michael St. Lawrence, 1012 Notting Pines Way, Castleberry, Florida. They discussed that they had the meeting on February 6th. They were going to provide us with minutes of the meeting. I don't know of anyone in our neighborhood that received any. So all this stuff is sort of new as to what they're talking about with us. The house on Notting Pines Way that they want to use, it is zoned right now residential. The whole community is residential. It's not zoned as a driveway into another subdivision. And that's their ultimate goal, is to knock down the house on Notting Pines Way and make it their driveway. There's two other questions which I think need to be addressed before you guys go on. Lot 25A and Lot 29, Lot 25A, which is owned by Linda Casey, and Lot 28, which is owned by the Knox Webb Trust. Lot 25A has no access to it, and if you look in the legal documents, there's no access to it. The Knox Webb Trust says that they have access to Mustang Way, but if you're going to block that off or whatever's going to be done, you better address planning is how do they get in and out? Are they going to be required to come through Notting Pines and increase the traffic through our area? On April 10th, 2012, the board was looking at changing the zoning back then, and Ms. Griffin wanted to keep it agricultural. If you look at the meetings, the April 10th, 2012 board meetings, you'll see what she stated as she wants to keep it as residential and low case. And matter of fact, you guys never changed her zoning to increase her rent on it, her money that she pays. If you want, also, we've made comments January 8th, 2019 on this matter. This is the third time we're going through this. And also, I guess the elephant in the room here is Deer Run. You guys purchased how many acres out of there? And it was for lower congestion. I guess all the things that we're saying. We just don't want a ton of vehicles coming through there. If there's going to be 40 units, that's at least 80 cars. If the other properties go through there, that's going to increase our flow of traffic through our area. So, hey, we're not asking you to buy that lot. We're just asking you to restrict it.
Thank you very much.
Any questions?
Fine. Thank you, sir. Following Mr. Hurley, we'll have Lawrence Smith, then George Carl III, then Monica Lewis. Okay. Mr. Hurley, please state your name and address for the record.
Joseph Hurley, my wife Rosemary, and I are 41-year residents of 1070 Notting Pines Way. To quote Yogi Berra, it's deja vu all over again. Again, we're here to defend our neighborhood on this subject. 41 years ago, us original homeowners, with our young families then, bought homes in this safe, quiet cul-de-sac street called Notting Pines Way. At the time, We asked about the land east of us, which is completely undeveloped, from Notting Pines all the way to Dodd Road. We asked about that, and we were told, of course it may be developed in the future, of course. But any such access would definitely be from Dodd Road. Okay, fine. Nice quiet street we got. So over the years, the land, as expected, was developed with new homes. These owners of this land, with approval of Seminole County, kept this nice wooded piece of land with its only access through Mustang Way. As these new housing developments took shape, the owners of this land had every opportunity to adapt, but instead they chose to keep the only access to their rustic retreat, with Mustang Way remaining a single-lane road. Then they got greedy. So we are now again being threatened by rezoning, which would inevitably lead to demolishing a perfectly fine house on our street to gain access to a new housing development. This would turn our promised safe, quiet cul-de-sac street into an access road. These landowners made their bed when they settled on Mustang Way to be the only access to their land. And that surely, their behavior surely justifies the present A1 zoning. They made their bed, now they need to lie in it, or else sell it to someone who wants a rustic retreat with enough space to use it for activities such as maybe raising horses, which probably was the name Mustang Way to begin with. Mustang Way can be used, yes, it can be used, accessed, just not for a big housing development. Let them use it the way it was intended and the way they originally let it happen. With approval of Seminole County, leaving this land with its only access a single-lane road. So basically, it's only fair that this rezoning request be denied.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Smith.
Larry Smith, 1074 Notting Pines Way. I'm actually a certified building contractor here in the state of Florida. I know a lot of people here in Seminole County. I'm not here to speak and be redundant and talk what everybody else is. I'm actually here to ask a few questions, because I do know a lot of building codes and I knew a lot of building deals. Number one is this property currently have a means of legal egress? Yes or no?
Sir, if you would just...
Is there a legal means of egress currently in place for this property?
Brett, go ahead and state your questions, and I'll have staff make a note and then respond.
Second, if that's the case, what are the parameters that it makes happen? I mean, if I'm not mistaken, under the current legal means of egress, that 4 residences are allowed to be placed on that. Okay? Second one is, how was this decision made? Is it voted on? Is it unanimous? Is it, by the committee? Is it majority rules? If that's the case, I even came to the county and asked if that's the case, I want to incorporate our road as in private. If it's a majority rules, then I want to make our road private. Because I actually want to see as-built plans on the site development of this property of Notting Pines Way from 1982, because I'm pretty certain in no way, shape, or form do they ever intend for this house to be knocked down, a road that's already populated, as stated before with the school across the street. It's a congestion nightmare. And my guess, if you're wanting to put, for every house, you times that by 2, that's how many cars you're going to put on that street. As Joe said previously, you know what? I'm all about, capital. That's what I do. I used to build houses. I'd be a hypocrite otherwise. But they asked, the attorneys in the previous statement said you cannot legally landlock this property. Well, from what my understanding is, it is not legally landlocked. Or it does have a means of current egress. It just doesn't comply and conform with what they want to use it for. So these are my questions, are if there is a means of egress, legal and what are the parameters that currently are in state for that property.
Thank you, sir. Mary, since there's a lot of people here and in the interest of being efficient with time, everybody's time, can you address some of those? Because I think they would be interesting to a lot of the audience members.
Yes, so for the egress right now, Mustang Way is a private easement, and what, Joy can describe that a little bit more detail.
Yes, so the existing Mustang Way private easement is 15 feet wide. It was conveyed back in the 80s when the subdivision to the east was developed, and it was conveyed to the property owners of the subject site so that they could access from Mustang Way. Currently, the development, it's not developed. There are no single-family residential homes on the parcels that are up for rezone. But it is a 15-foot wide legal access for those individual parcels.
And to clarify Joy's point as well, if they were to build single-family home, they would have to meet all of the current building and life safety codes. That includes fire access. So there may be additional things and means to meet the fire access regulations.
So Mustang Way would not be okay, even if they were building one single-family home on each lot?
They would have to prove how they meet the fire safety code of Seminole County, of the state.
Well, for the 4 residences?
Yes.
Well, in that case, I'm going to use Bruce Lane off of Brooks, because that is a single road access that does more than 4 residences. I have friends that live off Garlinger and all that, and I think if I'm not mistaken, there's a total of 15 houses back there with a single access road, because I actually helped reconstruct a bridge for Seminole County Fire Department.
So, Madam Chair, I will say this is not a back and forth conversation. Right. There was another question that was asked about how the decision was made.
Time's up.
You all are a recommending body, so you will make a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners, and then that recommendation will be presented, I think, at the June.
Possibly
First meeting in June. First meeting in June.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you.
Mr. Carl.
So Chairman Lawhon, can I make one clarifying comment
Certainly.
regarding the access? Rebecca Hammock, Development Services Director. I did speak with the fire marshal regarding Mustang Way, and the parcels, I think 5 of the 6 parcels are parcels of record, so they are vested, so they would be entitled to building permits. In terms of the access, they could use the access for emergency vehicles. Normally, a 20-foot unobstructed access way is required, but because of the parcels are vested, we couldn't prohibit them from building. However, they would, as Mary stated, they would have to demonstrate alternative means to make sure that they are meeting the NFPA standards, which could mean that they would have to sprinkle the houses. It would just really depend on where the water access is coming from, because if they're not able to get water lines from Notting Pines Way, they'd have to get them from Dodd. And so at this time, we don't know where the water lines are. I'm assuming there's water lines on Dodd as well, but.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca. I think that's very interesting to a lot of the folks here.
My name is George Carl. I live at 1017 Notting Pines Way with my wife Jeanette. We've lived there since 1982 when we first purchased our home on Notting Pines Way. Before I continue, I'd like to get clarification. Is it just the rezone of the property from its current zoning to the new zoning? And that's it? My question then is, how can we discuss that factually if it doesn't have proper access to support that rezone? Because right now, I'm hearing Mustang Way is great for the properties that exist, which I think is 4 or 5, purchased in 1975, 1985, and 2003. But it's not great for the additional development, which the applicant doesn't know. So I don't know how we can discuss it without including the access. But since your rules are the rezone is only for discussion, then I submit that maybe we should look at the floodplain and the wetlands south of the land. As we know, we're getting more water in our areas because my property at 1017 started to flood at the last Hurricane Ian. So other than that, there's not a lot we can say since you're doing just the rezone. I would like to make a comment, reference reference Mustang Way, that the current homeowners could apply under a grandfather clause to build. The fire truck from Fire Station 27 across the street nearly from the property access is 10.5 feet wide. That truck, that's mirror to mirror. And the easement is 15 feet?
Yes, sir.
They can surely fit down 15 feet to deal with any houses that are in Mustang Way at the current rezoning. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. After Ms. Lewis speaks, we'll have Mike Maroney, Lisa Maroney, and Roy McCaddy. Which microphone, Ms. Lewis?
My name is Monica Lewis. I live at 1065 Notting Pines Way. I live in the house that will be next to the one that will be torn down for the entrance to the subdivision. Everyone has basically covered what I wanted to say. I just want to voice my opinion that I'm very opposed to changing the zoning from agricultural to residential. It's one of the reasons why we bought the property, was because we had the agricultural land behind us. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Maroney.
Good evening. I'm Mike Maroney. I live at 1041 Notting Pines Way with my wife, Lisa. I only lived there about 6 years, but Lisa has lived there for quite a long time than I have. The Notting Pines Way, I think is too narrow to support an entrance for 30, 40 homes in addition to what's in our neighborhood already. In the morning and in the evening during rush hours, you can't get out our street without a delay. Someone mentioned there's a turn lane. I don't think it should be called a turn lane because people park on both sides of the street and you can't get 2 cars on each side. Or 2 cars on one side and 1 car on the other side to go through. So I think someone should look into that. It's not a true turn lane like you'd expect in other neighborhoods. When the school's let out, people mentioned, and when kids come to school in the morning, the parents are parking both sides of the streets. The police said they can't do anything about it. So I don't know what to say about that. It is a problem. And I can't see how in addition 30 to 40 houses would be 60 to 80 more cars going up and down our street every day. And not to mention the burden of construction vehicles, dump trucks such, a 1.5 to 2 years will take to build this development. I just can't see that being something positive for a residential neighborhood. They bought this property at some point in their lives and didn't pay attention to their access. That's not my problem. That is their problem. Anyway, so any plan to use Notting Pines as access for a new development is not compatible with the existing neighborhood. And sorry, I have one minute to say, but I have nothing else to say, so I won't waste time. Thanks.
Ms. Maroney.
My name's Mrs. Maroney, and I live at 1041 Notting Pines Way. I'm a teacher. When I took that house over, I was in the middle of a divorce. I don't know if you know what teachers make. That home, that neighborhood is for people that are blue-collar, common folk. I don't think Big Brother has the right to come in and take over our neighborhood. You may go down that street and say, wow, some of these homes need to be kept up a little better. That's where we live. This is our reality every day. And I encourage you to come see it. And now I'm trying to head towards retirement. my husband and I'm a cancer survivor. I think that we're owed a little respect. I want to say that the lady that lived in the house that was bought, I would visit with her every evening as she would pull her little grandson down in this little wagon. She never would, it was under false pretenses. She never knew what she was selling this house. She never would have done that. She was an upstanding neighbor. This whole thing is under false pretenses. And I totally disagree. And this rezoning, it's like Leela said, rezoning, that's just the beginning of the erosion. And then they talked about at the meeting that we went to, where we never got the minutes, that was a joke. They talked about, oh, well, we're gonna abandon Mustang Way. Of course, because if you do either of those, and I'm just a music teacher, but if you do either of those, you've got your access to Notting Pines. So I think you can see where we're sitting, but I would encourage you to come see the neighborhood. I really would, because we're good people. We maybe don't have any other financial options if we want to see retirement. Some people on the street already are retired, but just take that, marinate on that for a little bit. And my understanding, I don't want to quote who it was that we were told from Seminole County, the last time we went through this cycle, we were told that they could have 4 to 5, he was not sure which, 4 to 5 estate homes. They don't want that with their Mustang Way access. So what do we call that? Do we call that greed? I don't know what to call it, but I don't think our neighborhood has to be sacrificed for this. Maybe we can find out a way that we can all live together, be compatible, but I can tell you if it goes in, I'm not gonna want to live there, but I guess I'm gonna be what, stuck? Because I'm a teacher, I'd like to see retirement. So maybe you can consider those things. Obviously, I'm totally against this. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, after Mr. McCaddy speaks, we'll have Al Lindner. You all want to come up to the microphone? Roy McCaddy, and after him, Al Lindner.
Would you like to show something? No. Oh, okay, you can speak at the podium.
My name is Roy McCarthy, and I live at 3705 Aldergate Place, which is bordering on Mustang Way. So Mustang Way runs my backyard. I find it quite unfortunate and terrifying to think that we would have that type of traffic that is being suggested by some going up and down my backyard that could effectively cause severe damage to the infrastructure that is my property, not just my house, but the pool and whatever else we have there. And I think I can speak on behalf of the other, my neighbors who will also live on Aldergate Place that do have their houses bordering up to Mustang Way. Let's not forget that easement that was established several years ago effectively took several feet from our property. It did not take the land from the other subdivision. Those 15 feet were from our property, so there's nothing else to give. And our pool, etc., are right up against that fence, which is the fence for the easement. I just don't understand how Mustang Way could become a part of the plan to create a development within that area. I suggest, therefore, that you who are responsible for making this happen or preventing it from happening, give consideration to not causing any further damage to what we have already experienced. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Lindner.
Good evening. You probably already heard just about everything. My name is Al Linder. I live at 3709 Aldergate Place, Castleberry. I am also the association president for Howell Creek Park Homeowners Association. I'm a 20-year resident, and I really feel bad for the people that have had 30 and 40 years throughout this neighborhood, is Mustang Way is an interesting little path at best. And, now I've heard that everything, is that I've heard in opening statements, maybe I'm wrong, is it's county maintained, and I'll disagree with that. That's private property. I pay taxes on it. Roy pays taxes on it. Another resident there, we're those 4 houses that go through there, that own up there, and it goes across that little alleyway. That's how I would best describe it. I'm waiting to see how this is going to turn out, because the last time any type of equipment was brought down through there, it began the collapse of my retaining wall. And so now it's pressing up against my screen enclosure. So any other further traffic up and down through there, especially on a regular basis, is going to collapse my pool screen. That's how close I am to Mustang Way. As I said, I'm paying taxes on that. It's an egress. I know the fire truck guys, the engineers there, they're pretty good, but I'd like to see them navigate down Mustang Way. That would be a pay-per-view event. More than anything else, one of the things that I think is going to be impacted with everybody that lives through this area, and I'm not going to go into it, you've already had letters from a variety of different people from my homeowners association, is really the wildlife that lives back and through there, the wildlife that lives along Mustang Way. Is that my primary concern is the displacement of these wild animals, such as there's cottonmouth snakes back there, there's black bears back there, there's coyotes. The proposed development, these animals may be forced to migrate to the conservation area behind my house, near my house, behind my other resident's house there, which could pose a threat to the safety of our children and pets. The presence of these wild animals, close proximity to our community, may increase the risk of encounters and potential conflicts, posing a real safety concern for our families. We've really seen a huge influx because of all the other properties that have been developed. They're coming down Howell Creek at this point, and they're looking for sanctuary. And with that, I'll close.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. That concludes the comment cards that I've been given. Is there anyone else in the audience who'd like to speak in favor or in opposition to this item? No? Okay, then you? Okay.
Sure. My name is Rich Borzella. I live at 4095 Bellmead Court. I'm not actually part of Sutter's Mill, but I am the other neighborhood. I'm also the HOA president of that neighborhood. And I know this rezone has been kicked around for quite a few years now. I've been a resident of Oak Park since 2016, but I've lived in the area since I was born. I grew up in Deer Run. Over the years, I've seen a lot of traffic increase, especially going towards Oviedo and my native area right now, which is at Redbug and Dodd. I know tonight we're here to talk about the rezoning of this area, but we all know what that rezone is more than likely going to become. They've already laid the groundwork. They've already bought the house. They already have the plans. So there's not a whole lot that's going to stop what's to come once this rezone happens. And I'm 100% in opposition of the rezone, because it backs up right to our neighborhood, to our community park, which actually has a required gate that opens out to Mustang Way, providing access from one area to our neighborhood. And opening up that to residential would almost guarantee that be a cut-through, and we're required to have that gate for access for utilities. That's not something that we can cut off, because we do have a lift station located in our park. Commenting again on the flood, or the waters, we get a lot more rain. This year, we had a lot of flood damage in our neighborhood, and I'm afraid opening this up to development is going to increase runoff into our neighborhood, because already it struggles with drainage back behind it. But we manage. Few houses have been impacted. But I can almost guarantee, without having any surveys done, any research done, that that's going to increase. And with this rezone, you're not only affecting the neighbors of Notting Pines Way. I live on a cul-de-sac. I live on Bellmead Court. I can only imagine if someone wanted to tear down a house in my street and make it into an entrance to a neighborhood with 40 to 60 houses into it, increasing traffic that could potentially injure or cause harm to my children who love playing in the sanctity of that cul-de-sac. So I hope that you consider not what the impact will be to rezone, but what it's going to be in the next 5 to 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we'll close public comment. Would the applicant like an opportunity for rebuttal?
Good evening again. For the record, McGregor Love. I just want to clarify, I really did not mean any disrespect when I clarified that it was just a rezoning, and I really am empathetic to their concerns. I understand they've lived in this area for decades. I understand that. What I mean to do is, and you pointed this out, to clarify kind of what the scope of review is tonight. And I don't want to give anyone, this board knows what a rezoning approval would mean in terms of our right to develop. But I want everyone here to be aware that if you were to recommend approval and then the Board of County Commissioners were to approve a rezoning, we would not be able to then go and develop single-family homes, because all that a rezoning would do is say that the county is able to even process applications that would anticipate single-family homes like a preliminary subdivision plan. So if a rezoning is approved, it's certainly not the last time these folks will have an opportunity to come to a public hearing and voice their concerns. And I think the gentleman's question about how we can consider a rezoning application and not consider access kind of underscores what the scope of review is, because access is an issue at the preliminary subdivision plan stage, at the engineering stage. If there's not adequate access at that time, the rezoning approval is as good as the paper the ordinance is drafted on. You won't be able to build. But to the question of, is this zoning district consistent with the future land use? The county hasn't designated this property for agricultural or rural. It's designated it for low-density residential. And the zoning district that's being asked for is the same zoning district as all the properties to the north. It allows for quarter-acre lots. There's a long way to go before any quarter-acre lots can be developed, but it is consistent as a matter of the comprehensive plan. I'm here to answer any questions, so is our engineer.
I have a question of your engineer.
Yes, sir.
If he could come up.
Hi there, Chad Moorhead, Madden Moorhead and Stokes, 431 East Horatio Avenue.
Chad, so on the sewer use, you're going to have 40-some watts. Are you going to pump that into the gravity line that's in Notting? Is that the plan?
I anticipate that'll happen. We don't have topography on this thing. So
Where's the lift station?
I'm sure it'll be to the south.
No, not your lift station.
The Notting Pines lift station?
That's going to handle the gravity that's in Notting Pine. Where's that?
So we have a couple of options for sewer. We're a little early to talk about that, but the gentleman that was just up here talked about a lift station that's in his community park. So it's on the south side of, what is that, Bellmead or Oak Park subdivision. There's one up there. It's kind of in our northeast corner. And then we have the option of Notting Pines Way. Notting Pines gravity goes north and then west, and the lift station's west of us.
And you think the 8-inch gravity that's there is sufficient to handle all your homes too?
Absolutely.
Okay.
8-inch gravity line will carry up to 300 and plus units.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions of the applicant, staff, legal?
I've got a question for staff. Notting Pines Way, obviously it's a county road. Has it always, it's not a county road?
Oh, no, sorry, yes.
Oh, okay, I saw you shake your head, no. Has it always been a county road?
Yes.
Since the inception of that subdivision?
It was platted as a county road, yes.
Okay, all right, so y'all maintain it obviously and take care of everything?
Yes, it is evaluated and maintained as determined needed.
Has it been resurfaced at all in the last 40 years?
I do not have that answer at this time.
Okay.
I'm ready for some discussion.
All right, let's move to discussion then.
Yeah.
Can I start?
You can.
Thanks. I take exception to this is only a rezone also. It is only a rezone, but it's the wrong zoning category. I don't see how he can ask for R1 AA when I don't believe that he hasn't demonstrated it, and I don't believe this property proves that it can meet not just code, but all the engineering requirements that goes with it. So us just saying, hey, you can have R1 AA, we're making a big mistake because they haven't satisfied that it can be developed as R1 AA. Maybe they should be RC1, which is 1 acre lots. They could do septic or whatever, and that'd be it. It's 1,450 feet from Redbug down to this lot and the entrance to this potential subdivision. I think that's a long way, both for 40-some lots, for emergency vehicles, for all the school traffic and other things to travel. You know, you're going in front of 32 other lots. That's not very good. The water line has to be redone. That'll tear up Notting Way. I assume that maybe the engineer will tell me you have to loop the water line. They're going to have to go out the other way too.
I don't do the environmental reviews, but if the line is less than 8 inches, it would most likely have to be looped, and depending on the flows, it would also have to be looped.
Okay. I mean, they just haven't demonstrated in my mind that they can access, emergency access properly and so forth. It's certainly, they do have illegal access, but for 4 or 5 lots. So they're asking for the wrong zoning category. So this may only be a rezone, but I'm opposed to it.
Okay, other discussion or a motion?
Yeah, I'll move. I'll recommend to the Board of County Commissioners we deny the adoption of the ordinance enacting a rezone from A1 agriculture to R1 AA single family on approximately 18 acres located east of Notting Pines Way, approximately 1/4 mile south of Red Bug Lake Road.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Motion, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So the motion carries to recommend to the Board of County Commissioners against the proposal. We have less people on this.
Really? It's up to you. Or you want to break while they exit, or it doesn't make a difference. I'm ready to go.
I'm ready to knock it out.
I can keep going.
Yeah.
I will move to item number 5.
Can you hold it?
Tuskawilla Storage PD rezone.
I'm good now.
Okay.
Are you? Yeah.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Doug Robinson. I work with Development Services and Planning and Development. I'm here to present the Tuskawilla Storage PD rezone request. The applicant is requesting a rezone from M1 Industrial and A1 Agriculture to Planned Development or PD to allow a proposed self-storage facility on one parcel that totals about 4.81 acres. The site has been vacant since 2007. It was originally High Flavor Meat Plant. That building was demolished in 2006-2007 timeframe. So the site currently has the future land use designation of industrial, and the self-storage is only permitted in industrial future land use designation in unincorporated Seminole County, so it does have the correct future land use for the use. The site also has the split zoning I mentioned, the M1 and A1. The M1 zoning does actually allow the warehouse and self-storage, the A1 does not. As you can, well, you probably can't tell on the map exactly, but you can see maybe on the left side that pretty much the site is completely surrounded by the Winter Springs, city of Winter Springs, and most of that land immediately around the site is town center. The zoning is town center T4, Transect 4, which is general urban zone. And the self-storage is not a permitted use in the city of Winter Springs T4 zoning, which is surrounding. However, we're talking about a property that's in Seminole County that is surrounded. So, given the character of the area and the concerns about integrating with the town center, the applicant has proposed this as a planned development to attempt to create compatibility with the surroundings. They've also committed to several design criteria that to hopefully lessen the impacts to surrounding uses and properties, such as designing the building exterior to be consistent with the uses, can be consistent with the town center guidelines, the architectural guidelines. Also, the restricting of building height to the east, the eastern 200 feet to 12 feet, that would be a single-story building to the east, which is butting up against Strong Tree Way on the east side there and Tuskawilla crossings. Also, screening views of mechanical and fire equipment, fire protection equipment, designing the site so that external storage bay doors will not be easily seen from off-site, and reducing light spillage onto surrounding properties. They're exceeding our land development code requirements in that case. And not design related, but I think relevant to this is the applicant is also restricting the hours of operation from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Sunday, so 7 days a week. Access is proposed off of Tuskawilla Road there's an existing stub out there that is lining up with Avery Lake Drive to the west. I guess also while I'm in this area, I'll talk about Avery Park is single-family residential to the west, on the west side of Tuskawilla Road, Tuskawilla crossings to the east, and abutting the site to the east. And as you can see from the aerial, the site to the north is vacant. The site to the south is part of Tuskawilla crossings. I believe it's open space tract. And then just a little bit south of that is the Indian Trails Middle School. So regarding utilities, the site is actually in the city of Winter Springs utility service area for water and sewer. When the applicant applied, they provided us a copy of a letter that was sent to the city of Winter Springs requesting to connect to Winter Springs water and sewer. As far as we know, they have not received a response to that letter. And as part of the applicant's request, they would like to use private well and essentially an on-site sewer system for the disposal of waste. As you will see in your packet, we've provided some additional information regarding that request. It's in line with the ability to not connect. The applicant is drawing on the Florida statutes to say by not being able to connect, they've essentially been the service is not available, so that's why they're pursuing the private well and the on-site sewer system. And along with that, the statute restricts the gallons per day of sewer to 1,000 gallons per day or less, and so the applicant is actually committed to that in the master development plan as well as the development order. Regarding the water service, County Environmental Services has determined that based on the specific use, the self-storage, that they would not be required to connect to central water. There's been a lot of concerns about fire protection with not having a connection, so I'll speak a little bit about that as well. Our fire safety has reviewed this and stated that with the applicant proposing a private well, an alternative fire protection system is required and must be found in compliance with Florida Fire Prevention Code prior to the final development plan approval. And I'll try to keep this brief. I know we have a lot of people that like to speak, so I'm going to try to go through this a little bit faster as we go. Again, I spoke a little bit about the zoning and land use. On the left here, you can see the property in the center of the map. We do have, Seminole County has future land use of medium density residential to the northwest of the site, but primarily all the other properties around here are City Winter Springs. As you can see, also on the zoning side, A1 zoning to the northwest, and then town center zoning is everywhere else around the site. Regarding wetlands, the site does contain wetlands. The wetland delineation buffers shall be required at final development plan. Going back to the aerial, that is more located along the eastern edge of the property, which feeds into the buffers and maintaining the buffers between those Tuskawilla crossing and the development. The site has been vacant since 2007, so there's a potential that the site could have endangered and threatened species. We will require a listed species survey be provided prior to the final development plan approval. Landscape buffers, I'll go over this kind of quick, but I certainly can come back and answer any questions. They are required to provide landscape buffers on all sides of the project. The widths of the buffers will range from 10 feet on the north side of the site and 10 feet on the south side to 20 feet along the eastern edge of the property, with potentially a fence located either at the property line or inside of the landscape buffer, and a 25-foot landscape buffer along Tuskawilla Road on the west side. And those landscape buffers can be counted towards their 20% open space requirement. Kind of wrapping up here, a community meeting was held for the project on Tuesday, March 14th, and I believe it started around a little after 6 p.m. It was well attended. There were at least 87 attendees. I understand there were 2 sign-in sheets that were circulated, and primarily 87 were on one, and then I believe there was another 16 or 14 names on the second sign-in sheet that was somehow routed. The applicant stated that there were a wide range of questions and concerns were raised about the project, and I covered some of the issues about the fire protection equipment. I know there was certainly a whole list of issues and concerns about visibility and not only seeing it, but what impacts it could have on property values and so on. Anyway, I'm sure there'll be questions on that, and we'll leave it at that for now. The City of Winter Springs has provided a letter of objection to the project, and to date we've received two emails or letters of opposition, which I believe Stacia may have provided to you this evening to see. And just kind of wrapping up, we do find that the proposed use and intensity is consistent and compatible with Seminole County's comprehensive plan for the industrial future land use designation. We also find that the PD zoning classification is consistent with the county's land development code and the surrounding development in the area. And therefore, we're recommending approval to the board. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Questions of staff?
Yeah, I have a question. So the City of Winter Springs has water and sewer running in front of this property?
Yes, I do believe it's a 12-inch water main, and there are fire hydrants along Tuskawilla Road.
And they're denying the landowner to tie in?
I couldn't say for sure. We did reach out about whether or not the City of Winter Springs had received that letter from the applicant, okay, which was submitted to us. We did not get a response on whether or not the letter was received or if there was a response provided to the applicant, and maybe we can get some clarification on that tonight. I do see staff from the City of Winter Springs here, as well as the applicant is here.
Good, thank you.
Any other questions of staff? Is the applicant present?
Good evening, Madam Chair, fellow commissioners. Brent Spain, Theriac and Spain, 1809 Edgewater Drive, Orlando, Florida, here on behalf of the applicant. So I'm going to keep my initial remarks short. Obviously, there's a detailed staff report. Actually, I don't know how you all say it, Legistar, but online. And it goes through the review criteria. It lays out why staff, in a little more detail than the PowerPoint presentation, found that this request is consistent both with the county's comprehensive plan and the county's land development code. And just to, you saw it on the screen, but again, we're not here for a land use change. We have industrial future land use on the entire site. We have M1 on the front half of the site, and there's this A1 remnant on the back. And the M1 and the industrial allow us to do the mini storage use. In fact, when this project initially came in, and we've been in this process for a while, I think the initial pre-app was back in December of 2021. And then we did a straight zoning application in March of 2022, because initially it was, we'll come forward with a PD. It shifted just to go to straight zoning on M1 on the whole property. And then the preference shifted back to going to a PD, really to address any of the concerns that have been raised, because through the PD, as you all know, you can impose restriction and limitations. So we've done that through this process. Staff has, I can attest, thoroughly vetted this project. There's been multiple meetings on it. We've came to the point where we've met all of the comments that have been provided on this project. The PD limits it solely to a mini storage use. It doesn't allow any other M1 uses, which you all know, M1 incorporates by reference many other zoning districts. So there are things that could be done tomorrow as of right. My folks could go out there and put a contractor storage yard out on Tuskawilla Road. We certainly don't want to do that. We don't have the intent to do that. And we've limited it through the DO and the master development plan. The height has been limited. You'll probably hear some of that this evening, and I'll certainly address some of it on rebuttal. But 35 feet, that's the same height as in a single-family zoning district. You may hear folks talk about our building being 3 stories, but you'll see the architectural renderings. The building is designed to present as a 2-story building. And again, it's capped at 35 feet to the flat roof. The architectural enhancements go above 35 feet, but those were a specific request of staff and the city of Winter Springs that we meet their town center design guidelines. So we have articulation in the building. The rendering is in the packet. It's attached to the development order. We're going to be held to that substantial compliance with that rendering. And that building is designed consistent with buildings in the town center up and down Tuskawilla Road. So with that, we certainly respectfully ask for your support and recommendation of approval. And I stand for questions and request some time for rebuttal.
Of course. Questions of the applicant?
Yeah, can you answer the question that I just asked staff regarding water and sewer? Have you applied to the city of Winter Springs?
Yeah, so the water is out on Tuskawilla Road.
Mm-hmm.
The sewer is back in Tuskawilla Crossings behind us.
Mm-hmm.
And it runs down, I think, Strong Tree Way. There's a separation between our property and Strong Tree Way. There's a 10-foot strip between our property and that property, so we're not adjacent to that sewer line. The applicant submitted a written request to the city of Winter Springs to check on the availability of water and sewer. They also personally met with the city manager after sending that letter, and to date, we have not received a written response saying, yes, we'll provide you sewer and water. The inclination being, and certainly from the community meeting, is no, because we don't want your project. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions of the applicant? Okay, I've got some comment cards here from the audience. All are in opposition. Is there anyone here who'd like to speak in favor of this item? Then we'll move on to these. We'll call 3 at a time again. First will be Anthony Ganganese, then David Plummer, then Dexter Glasgow.
With your permission, can we just wait for the overhead projector to start up? Because I just have a couple of slides I'd like to show you, the old-fashioned way. Okay. Good. It's ready. Okay, good evening. My name is Anthony Garganese. I'm the city attorney for Winter Springs. I've had the pleasure to serve as Winter Springs city attorney since 1999. I'm here because the city commission has expressed its opposition regarding this project and asked that I convey that opposition on their behalf. The city has noted this property is an enclave located in the heart of the city of Winter Springs Town Center. The city has significant governmental interest regarding the future development of this property under interlocal agreements with the county, our mutual comprehensive plans. First, I'd like to start off by just framing the zoning issue. I think staff touched upon it. But I put an overhead slide up just to note the A1 property, the property that is currently zoned A1. So about half the property is currently zoned A1. A1, as staff indicated, doesn't permit storage warehouses. The PD zoning results in a significant and incompatible change in the development intensity for the A1 property to the tune of a complete development project of 107,000 square feet of warehouse space. So with respect to the A1 property, it's right up against Tuskawilla Crossings, which is one of the most premier town center development projects in the city of Winter Springs. It wasn't noted, but I will note it. The county's comprehensive plan, the A1 zoning district, is already consistent with the industrial future land use map designation pursuant to the FLU Exhibit 9 and the comprehensive plan. No change is needed to bring the A1 designation consistent with the comprehensive plan. I'll also note that the plan development process is a completely discretionary process that gives the county commission significant leeway regarding the approval of uses and structures. The county should exercise this discretion, maintain the status quo, and deny the application. There was a comment made by, I think, the applicant's attorney that there's a detailed staff analysis in Legistar. We can't find it. We haven't been provided it. And I would suggest to you that under the interlocal agreements between the city and the county, we should have received it directly from the county. We did not. So I want to address compatibility performance standards, because it's important to realize that the county doesn't have just carte blanche to approve or deny. They have to apply criteria. And the county's comprehensive plan, FLU 2.9, FLU 131, and the city code and the county code itself, 3443, specifically provides for that criteria for compatibility. I have copies of those provisions, but I just, for the sake of time, the comp plan policy 2.9, I would ask for an additional 3 minutes because I'm representing the city of Winter Springs, Madam Chairperson. Compatibility for PD development zoning can be achieved by these application of these performance standards. The county commission has discretion as to the uses and structures approved within a PD classification, as well as all other features of the PD plan and the plan as a whole. Under the plan development section of the comprehensive plan, the states that additionally, with respect to submittal requirements, architectural details may be considered by the county commission. In addition, such standards may include but not be limited to building style, design and scale, inclusive of building size and placement, site furnishings, fences, entrance features, etc. The master development plan that's attached to this PD zoning doesn't even depict a building. How can you determine compatibility of this PD zoning without even knowing where the placement and the size of the buildings will be located? I have a document that I had pinged. Pass this down. Pursuant to a public records request, which Granted, it was a conceptual plan, but it shows the intention of the developer regarding the placement of the buildings. And it shows not only a warehouse, mini warehouse on Tuskawilla Road, but shows a series of warehouse buildings into the A1 area. And when you look at their aesthetic plans, you can see that the warehouse buildings consist of open bay warehouse linear units, and those units, as far as we can tell from the public comment portion during the community meeting, are not going to be AC'd. So that's an indication of where the placement of the buildings will be. Our staff, in order to look at the compatibility, prepared a couple of our artist renderings that I'd like to share with you. And those artist renderings, show a potential scale of this project based on that conceptual site plan. This shows, for example, the building along Tuskawilla Road. That's one. Here's a view from behind Tuskawilla Crossings. You can see the linear warehouse buildings that we believe are being proposed, as well as the scale of the warehouse building on Tuskawilla Road. And I have copies for you that I'll leave when I'm finished with this presentation. When we look at the staff report in the agenda, it doesn't even identify the criteria that's in the comprehensive plan, the sections that I indicated to you. In addition, there's several other policies. Issue IGC 3, policy IGC 1.10, policy FLU 2, regarding the relationship between the city and the county and trying to protect the compatibility of development projects up against residential areas.
Mr. Giggins, please try to wrap up.
Okay, I will wrap it up. So there's no staff analysis that we can see regarding the compatibility, so there's a lack of competent substantial evidence here, which is required. And in addition, as I noted, the application is incomplete because the master development plan doesn't even include the buildings, the scope and size. And lastly, I'm going to leave you with this depiction. Let's put compatibility into context and what's at stake for the city of Winter Springs. Here's your subject property. The area in purple is the Winter Springs Town Center. You can see that this property is completely surrounded by by Winter Springs Town Center and the low-density residential. You can see Avery Park, 2.54 dwelling units per acre, Tuskawilla Crossings. We have a Savoy adult living facility right nearby with 145 dwelling units. We have hundreds of homes in Oak Forest, 2.72 dwelling units per acre.
Thank you.
Tuskawilla Crossings, so let me leave this with you. I appreciate your time. 6 minutes is not a lot of time, but we did what we could.
Mr. Plummer.
Good evening. I'm David Plummer, a homeowner in Tuskawilla Crossings, 1514 Eagle Wind Terrace, Winter Springs. I've actually prepared a little statement. I've given you a written documentation of it, and I just plan to read it from my phone. My family and I purchased our home in Tuskawilla Crossings after carefully considering the area, the schools, and the zoning for future development. We would never have purchased our home last year if we had known that a rezoning of the undeveloped areas to accommodate a storage facility was even a possibility. This structure These structures, storage facilities, are known to attract drug dealers, the unhoused, various criminal elements. It is shameful and dangerous to do such a rezone and construct such a facility for such a business in the midst of all these residences and 2 public schools, one in elementary, one in middle school, adjacent, absolutely adjacent to Tuskawilla Crossings. I urge you, please vote to deny.
After Mr. Glasgow, we'll have Byron Walden Jr., then Joel Trevise, am I saying that right? And then Christina Marley Higley. Mr. Glasgow.
Good evening. Dexter Glasgow, 1358 Brave Wolf Point, Winter Springs, Florida, 32708. This is going to be pretty simple. I think most of you on that board are on there because you want to see Seminole County grow, but grow in the right way. Okay, this does not fall in that. This is about community for me. The two schools that are adjacent, the children in the neighborhood can walk inside the community on a path to get there. It's a beautiful area. The main road, Tuskawilla, that's where we have our Christmas parade every year. People line up there, watch the fire trucks go by, watch the elementary school kids, the high school kids come by. This facility does not belong there. It's completely out of place. No matter how they try to redesign it or phrase that it's going to look, it just will not belong there. Will it affect property values? Most definitely. Will it affect the aesthetic of the community? Most definitely. But at the heart of this, it's going to be a sucker punch. This is a slap in the face. There was a veiled threat in there about they could use it for a storage yard for construction equipment. If they're not granted the rezoning, that again just lets you know where their mind is at. This isn't about fitting into the community or doing something that would benefit the community. Do we want to see growth? Yeah, we all love Winter Springs. I plan on retiring there. I plan on being there until the day they put me in the dirt. But is this kind of growth what we can expect in the future? It just doesn't belong, and we implore you, please deny them this rezone. I mean, I'll keep it short and simple that way. It just does not belong there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Walden.
Hi there, Byron Walden Jr., 166 Wooded Vine Drive, Winter Springs, Florida. I'm one of the homes that would be directly behind the storage facility. I've spent 30 years in Winter Springs. I've grown up here. I've watched it grow. This isn't Winter Springs. I mean, a storage facility doesn't fit anything that has been built in this community. I implore you guys, please deny this. This will crush property values and crush our way of life in our community. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Treves, correct me, please.
Yes, Joel Trouse, 1459 Rushing Rapids Way. Apologies for my bad handwriting. Thank you, Commission, for being here this evening. Appreciate your empathy, but also sticking to the facts as well. I am on the board of Tuskawilla Crossings, and I'm here representing them this evening. We have 378 lots, over 1,000 individuals living in this community. As Mr. Plummer just mentioned, who would ever move to a community with a Walmart-sized storage facility right outside their premises? Huge potential drop in property value. How can you spice up a storage unit to make it look compatible to the surrounding use? You cannot. There's nothing you can do to make that compatible. We hope and wish and implore them to work with the city of Winter Springs to have something compatible to the use of the surrounding area. Furthermore, I would like to make a statement about the public hearing that was had in the past. Very poorly run. There was not enough chairs for the individuals that attended. It was difficult to hear what the individual was saying, especially for the elderly individuals in our community. And the displays were hard to see. He had to stand up on a high chair for those to be seen. Again, was it in the best interest of our community? I would suggest no. As we talk about property rights, as I mentioned, the homeowners in the surrounding area, Tuskawilla Crossings, Avery Park, everyone in Winter Springs and the surrounding area, we have just as much property rights as the owner of that land. And that's why I'm here imploring you guys to consider all the other individuals who are in the surrounding area who will certainly see a decline in property values, a decline in tax revenue, and less people interested in living in these areas. It really is a ripple effect. And again, I would ask you to consider, would you move next door to such a structure? We have an area of townhomes in our community, individual separate units. They are directly behind this facility. They'll be able to see it from their bedroom window on the second floor. It's really an atrocity that's even being considered. Additionally, I would like to call out the future land use. It is our understanding that it has been quite some time since that future land use was reviewed. At some point in time, it's quite possible when no one was living in all these areas that industrial, it may have made sense 40 years ago. I would ask you to look at that future land use and determine if that's appropriate, and if possible, look at that agricultural and perhaps provide a new opinion into that as well. Planned development. I was reading the definition. It's intended to encourage creative, innovative, and mixed-use development. A storage unit is not creative. It is not innovative. And again, it is not going to be compatible and harmonious for the land and the surrounding areas, as previously mentioned. A Walmart-sized structure surrounded by communities, surrounded by schools, is very shocking to our community, very disappointing, and I would ask you to oppose that. Also, as mentioned, there's the water lines. They want to have a well, from my understanding, pumping water out. Again, if we have a Walmart-sized structure and the fire breaks out and it's filled with people's stuff, are we going to be able to appropriately take care of that? To me, maybe they're meeting some type of minimum requirements, but again, we have homeowners living in that land that could be affected. Something else I urge you to consider today. And additionally, and I believe it'll be talked more about by other individuals speaking, but the sewage system, they want to have a sewage system in the back instead of connecting to the sewer lines. Again, it's so close to our community. We just had this very, very bad hurricane. There was flooding in Winter Springs. We don't want sewage coming into the homes of the members of our community. We've seen issues before. We don't want it to occur again. And this is a very serious concern that we have. It's a state law, from my understanding, that they should connect. They need to connect. Tuskawilla Crossings, we are willing to work with Winter Springs and others to connect the sewage line that is behind, that was mentioned earlier. It's very clear in all of our minds, and that it is not able to be compatible with such a large property. I appreciate each of you for listening intently this evening, and I implore you to vote no on this change. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. After Ms. Higley, we'll have J.B. Gurney.
Alrighty, good evening and thank you for your time. My name is Christina Higley, 420 Park Lake Drive, Winter Springs. I am asking for extended time as I am here representing the majority of homeowners at Avery Park HOA. I've had the pleasure of serving over the last 15 months as the president of the Avery Park Homeowners Association. We are an 88-home gated community located right across from the proposed storage unit, with homes totaling over $60 million in combined value. The majority of our residents have expressed serious concerns over the storage unit project and potential rezoning. We are shocked and disappointed by the behavior of not only the landowner, but the realtor representing the potential developer. I think it is important for each of you to know a few things that had occurred during the public hearing. From the public hearing, the community barely being notified of it occurring during spring break, from the tiny poster boards displayed of his plans at his meeting that we had to crowd around, to not having enough seating upon arrival, and arrogantly not attempting to secure more seats for those unable to stand extended periods of time, to not having the appropriate accommodations for those who are hard of hearing, to Mr. Axel blatantly misinforming homeowners with information found to be omitted or lies through basic FOIL requests. Mr. Axel and his client have had little regard for the process, our city, and residents. As you consider this project tonight, I kindly ask that you please remember that you do have an obligation, unlike Mr. Axel and his client, to ensure that the rezoning for this type of project conforms to the surrounding areas. The applicant is asking to rezone to a planned development. Planned development districts, as the last gentleman mentioned, are defined specifically as being meant to ensure and promote land compatibility, and harmony. I'm unsure how a 3-story storage unit being nestled amongst residential homes, tucked by 2 schools in a senior community is compatible, harmonious, or conforms to the existing community surrounding it. Interestingly, when concerned citizens like myself have asked Mr. Axel, as well as county commissioners such as Commissioner Bob Delary, to give an example of a rezone or a project similar to this being tucked amongst residential homes, the county nor the developer has been able to provide a single example anywhere in Seminole County that would be remotely close to what is being proposed on this land. That's pretty alarming when a county commissioner or a developer who's well-known can't provide a single example of this for residents like myself to go look at. Certainly, I want to be sympathetic to the landowner as they have a right to be able to sell their land, but existing homeowners surrounding this property do have a right to protect their home values, to ensure their safety, and they do have a right to enjoy their property without such projects like a Walmart-sized building in their backyard as well. It is important to note the future land use and zoning for this land has not been reviewed, as the last gentleman had mentioned, in many, many years. And the landscape in this part of Seminole County has certainly changed over the last few years, with even just Tuskawilla crossings being developed. Most importantly, I do not believe, after further investigation and speaking with city and county employees, as well as attorneys, planning firms, etc., that the interested developer or county have done their due diligence to show that this rezoning at this time is even appropriate or necessary. State Statute 381.0065 regarding sewage disposal from developments such as this, even for 1,000 gallons or less, would require the developer tie into an existing sewer line. A line absolutely does exist within the required footage based on the state statute. Tying into this line would require the developer become a part of the city and follow city zoning requirements, completely removing this from the county's jurisdiction. The county, I believe, is wasting their time even considering this application for rezoning, as the city of Winter Springs, based on my inquiries and FOIL requests, has never provided a water sewer availability response to Doug Robinson, proving this land indeed can't be tied into that sewer line. Why would the developer still continue this rezone through the county, you may ask? Simple, because as we've already heard tonight, they won't be able to place this storage unit or other large projects on this land if forced by state statutes to tie into the city's lines and comply with the city zoning. To kind of wrap this up, I'm requesting the county this evening deny the request for a rezone and put this matter back to the landowner and developer until the city of Winter Springs says officially that the water and sewage can't be provided and they won't be required to follow the state statute. Furthermore, this will allow and make sure that all steps are followed and options exhausted to ensure indeed this project wouldn't need to tie into those lines, and it would also make sure that this project is compatible with what is currently surrounding the land. I appreciate your time and thank you for listening to everything I had to share this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Last is J.B. Gurney. I don't see him up, though. Mr. Gurney, are you present? Okay, Stacia, do we have any other comment cards? Okay. Come on.
Thank you.
Got a bad leg, so.
Late submissions.
I wanted to, the mayor.
Go ahead, state your name and address for the record.
All right. Good evening, my name is Kevin Cannon, P.O. Box 195447. I've been a longtime resident of Winter Springs. Mr. German, it's good to see you. Mr. Smith, I think you put your finger right on the issue when you asked about the water and sewer at the very beginning. What has occurred here, because there's water and sewer there, there's absolutely no reason why it cannot be tied in. But if they tie into the water and sewer, then they have to come in under the city, and they have to follow our town center zoning. I'm sure all of you have driven through the Winter Springs Town Center. You know that over 20 years ago, it was envisioned and it has been building out as a beautiful part of our community, consistent, by the way, with the requirements that the county and the city have worked out in their interlocal agreement. They're simply doing an end run around Winter Springs and the town center zoning by claiming there's not water and sewer available and then dumping it into the lap of Seminole County. You know, I'm sure all of you have read your comprehensive land use plan, and you know that actions taken
by the county must be consistent with the comp plan. It's not maybe coulda, woulda, shoulda. You must be consistent. There's numerous provisions in the county's own comprehensive land use plan that this project violates. So the property rights element was adopted about 2 years ago. Remember, the legislature required every local government to require a property rights element. Policy PR 2.2, the property rights element, section K. Okay, this is a 106,000 square foot storage unit, and for anyone to believe that is compatible with the abutting or proximate properties is just ridiculous, respectfully. It's ridiculous. So PR 2.2.b says the fact that a zoning classification is within the range of zoning classifications allowed with the land use designation shall not mean nor be construed that a particular zoning classification are a reasonably foreseeable use of the property. Now let's step back and use common sense. Many of those of you that have lived in Seminole County for decades know there used to be cows on the property, and they had a one-story meatpacking plant there, one story, which has been closed down for nearly 20 years. Gone. One story, not a 106,000 square foot building. To suggest that this is compatible, if you drive from one end of Tuskawilla at 434 all the way to Aloma, which is well outside the city limits, you will not see anywhere along there a 106,000 square foot facility like this. It doesn't exist. It's all residential except at the intersections, which are commercial. If I can just have an extra 30 seconds, Madam Chairman, I want to bring your attention to specific provisions.
Go ahead, try to wrap up.
Okay. In 2006, when the county underwent the evaluation and appraisal report for the comp plan, FLU-1, the first issue enumerated in your comp plan says that the major issue is neighborhood protection. This does not protect the neighborhood of Tuskawilla. 2.9, Policy FLU 2.9, 2.13A5, 2.13C1, 2.13C2. Objective of FLU 3 requires uses that are inconsistent to be reduced if they're inconsistent with the community character. The community character of this neighborhood is not meatpacking plants and cattle ranches.
Thank you, Mr. Cannon.
All right.
Okay. Oh, you have some more? Okay. Okay, we'll have Nick Tafelsky, then Victoria Collerzeb, maybe? Caliangelo, sorry. Read a Z in there. And our last speaker will be Mayor Kevin McCann.
All right, good evening, thank you. For the record, Nick Tafelsky, I'm the Senior City Planner for the City of Winter Springs. I just wanted to elaborate a little bit further on some of the statements that Mr. Garganese made at the beginning, and I suppose also what has been mentioned by multiple others. When people say that this is going to be bigger in bulk than a super Walmart, that is not an exaggeration. The Walmart on Aloma at 417 is smaller than this proposed structure. So this is not a hyperbolic statement. This is an enormous building. Beyond that, throughout the county's comprehensive plan, both the intergovernmental coordination and the future land use chapter, as was previously stated, mention of neighborhood protection, protecting homes, natural areas, drainage features, et cetera, is mentioned over and over and over again. And I don't see how this proposed use or in the rezoning, which, as we know, with the PD proposed will inevitably lead to what's proposed of this large storage facility. I do not see how that passes the laugh test. I don't think it's appropriate. Beyond that, some of the documents that were included, as reference, the rezoning for the Avery Park development back in 2001 was included, as well as the rezoning for Tuskawilla Crossings in 2014. Within the documentation provided from county staff, it states that that the city at that time made affirmative statements that the proposed developments of single-family homes were compatible with surrounding existing land use. No affirmative statements regarding that exist in either of those staff reports. Additionally, even in regard to the slaughterhouse being on the property that we're now talking about, the slaughterhouse closed before either of these Avery Park or the Tuskawilla Crossings rezonings existed. So the existing land use at that time would have been a vacant structure, not an industrial operation. And as previously stated, I would argue even beyond that, that a one-story slaughterhouse is very different from a three-story storage facility. Beyond that, I'll also state that there was statement that analysis was provided in the staff report. I don't see the staff report. I see a development order, but I don't see a staff report. So I don't know how you can say there's a staff report when it doesn't exist. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Victoria?
Hi, Victoria Colangelo, 129 Cherry Creek Circle, Winter Springs, Florida. I am a new city commissioner for Winter Springs, and my platform that I ran on was to not have this storage unit in the heart of Winter Springs in our town center. I have had so much controversy from my constituents regarding this project than any other thing. There's an Ace Hardware being proposed just to the north, and no opposition. But the storage unit really, really, really will provide a detriment to this small community. There's only a few parcels of land left in Winter Springs, and we're really trying to cultivate and remain our pristine little village, and this will hinder that. It is the size of 2 Publixes. It's a huge facility. My daughter goes to school just to the south of it, and I believe that if this were to be approved, a turn lane going north into this property should be evaluated, which is currently not there. Because if you think of moving trucks, and we have the students, this is right by the school zones, and I feel like this is not the highest and best use for this property. A pre-annexation agreement was sent from the city of Winter Springs to Seminole County and also to the applicant, suggesting that Winter Springs would like to have this property in our jurisdiction so that we can provide water and sewer, and so that the only option is not storage units because they don't have the resources to water. So I would employ you to look into the pre-annexation agreement with Winter Springs to help our residents maintain our beautiful village. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, just for the record, I want to clarify, there's been mentioned twice now that there was not a staff report that's been provided. We do have a staff report, and that was sent to the city of Winter Springs. It's right here in front of me.
So there was a
emailed.
link sent to you, Nick, that should have had the agenda attached.
Yes, I have it. Mayor McCann.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairwoman and members of the board. Kevin McCann, 1109 Pheasant Circle in Winter Springs, Florida. Quite frankly, to begin with, why are we here? We should not be here to open, and I'll list off some other state statutes repeating what the city attorney and others have said. This does not belong here. State statutes are rather clear. We can start with the Florida legislature in section 171.046 states that the enclaves can create significant problems in planning, growth management, and service delivery, and therefore the legislature declares that it is the policy of the state of Florida to eliminate enclaves. We then move forward that, of course, it's the second largest building in the city next to the high school, but we also have state statute 381.0065 that was also mentioned. I think that it is important to note that dated yesterday, I have reached out to the Environmental Health Director with the State of Florida's Department of Health, and in his reply to my questions whether or not a septic system would be allowable there, his response is based on the information provided. Should an application be submitted for the property, we would suggest to the applicant that they seek to tie into the available sewer system in the easement in front of the property. As we discussed previously, state statute 381.0065 would be the standard by which we would make our determination. The law is clear, folks. It's clear. And that they must tie into our septic system. They must use our utilities. And for the record, I will say, and because there seems to also be some confusion about whether or not we agreed, they must connect to our utilities. If they build there, they must use our utilities. Therefore, this conversation should not be taking place here. This argument is dead on arrival. The state statutes are clear. I would like to cover a couple of other real quick things about as the city commissioner mentioned, and I would like to provide and a sign of good faith a copy of an annexation, a pre-annexation agreement where we made incredible financial offers by reducing costs, covering application fees, getting rid of impact fees, all these significant. This document was presented. It also includes the many, many, many lists of available usage on that property once it's in the heart of our city. It goes on and on. They're highlighted. I'd like to have this entered into the record, if I may. Finally, I think that it's really important to talk about a lot of other ways that this can impact. If representing the residents of Winter Springs, may I have?
I gave that time to the attorney, but yes, go ahead.
I'll make it real short. Bottom line is there are many other issues. The city of Winter Springs does sit on Lake Jessup. We have had significant stormwater issues. We had over 200 homes flooded during Ian. We have made major changes to our stormwater system being on the edge of Lake Jessup and all those stormwater that runs through Winter Springs to reach Lake Jessup. This being an enclave, they will not even have to match our new stormwater ordinances and our regulations. All of these little things all pile up. It's really important for all those homes that live there that they meet standards. I'll wrap this up. I really do hope that you'll follow the letter of the law. I think it's real clear what the residents of Winter Springs, we're a proud community. We're lucky to be there. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Would the applicant like a chance to rebut? I presume the answer is yes.
Good evening again, Brent Spain, Theriac and Spain, 1809 Edgewater Drive on behalf of the applicant. And you heard a lot there, so I'm going to try to go through them sort of in chronological order. You heard a sort of consistent theme. It's interesting we're hearing this on the evening of our public hearing that suddenly, oh yeah, no, we'll gladly provide you water and sewer, even though they've known for a year that we've been over here going through the approval process and review and vetting. In fact, you have the email in your packet from their city planner. Nowhere in that email from the city planner, the gentleman who spoke, did he say, oh, and by the way, Mr. Robinson, we will provide water and sewer. He had every opportunity to do that. He didn't do it. He listed 3 little objections, 2 of which are exactly the same. Hey, if they were in the town center, they couldn't do a mini storage. Well, we're not in the city of Winter Springs. So I'm going to go through these as quickly as possible, but I need to make a complete record this evening. One, there was a question about fire and whether it's been reviewed. It has been reviewed. This site will be serviced by an on-site fire water storage tank, and it will have to meet all the necessary requirements to do so. It also will be screened and will not be visible from any of the surrounding properties. That's on the master development plan. It's in the development order. You had an issue about wetlands. Our site, there's no intention to impact any of the wetlands on the site. They're on the back east side and south side. They'll be set aside, and there's a stormwater pond as well on the back side, so those aren't impacted. You had a question come about the A1. Well, A1 doesn't allow the mini storage. You've heard, we have industrial land use. We're not asking for that to be changed, and we have M1 on the front that allows the mini storage. The A1, what we've done in the PD, and it's on the master development plan, it's in the development order, it's one of those unique things you can do when you go the PD route, which remember, we initially came in as a PD, then we were told to go straight zoning, and then staff actually requested go back to PD route because we can address any compatibility concerns and ratchet in restrictions. Within 200 feet of the property to the east, the building height is limited to 12 feet in height. Now, Tuskawilla Crossings, all those homes, my understanding is they can at least go to 35 feet. And the homes that are on a Strong Tree Way, the alley there, those are all the garage. They've got rear entry garages facing that alleyway. So it's not front of the house is looking toward the back. There's also a 10-foot buffer on their property that they maintain. It's fully vegetated. And we're providing an additional 20 feet. Plus, within 200 feet of that property line, we're limited to 12 feet in total height. I would submit through the buffer, and we had a rendering that we submitted to the county. You won't even see that building from standing on the ground. Now, me saying I'm on the roof of my house and I'm looking out, we're going to get to some of the things that they can already see, including the suggestion that we're the largest building short of the high school in the entire city of Winter Springs. That's just flat out incorrect. But again, 12 feet in height within 200 feet of that property line. The staff report, Ms. Moskowitz touched upon it. All you have to do is go to your guys' electronic agenda. There's a case number. You click it, it brings up Legistar, and voila, there's the staff report. So, you know, I'm not the most sophisticated individual technically. I have it right here in my packet. I printed it this morning. The city attorney for Winter Springs questioned whether our master development plan complies with the county requirements because it doesn't show a building footprint. We're not required to show a building footprint. We're allowed to do a bubble plan under the county's regs. Your staff has fully reviewed it. It fully meets all the requirements for a master development plan. Can you do one that shows building footprints? Yes, you can. We're not at that stage, but everything about that municipal master development plan complies with your requirements. The rendering they've shown, that rendering has been circulated. In fact, it got into a newspaper under the misnomer that it was our rendering. While I appreciate the city doing their own self-serving rendering, nothing on that rendering is to scale. In fact, the back buildings that they put on the property, I would submit nothing about that looks like it's 12 feet in height. And the front building certainly is not 35 feet in height in their rendering. They made this massive drawing, sort of this shock and awe, and they put it in the newspaper saying this is the developer's rendering. And we had to call the newspaper and email them to let them know that's not our rendering at all. So that rendering is not accurate by any stretch of the imagination. They've talked about there's nothing remotely as big as this anywhere in the city of Winter Springs. And it's left off the aerial that's in your site plan, in the staff report, but I want to show it. Excuse me. Does my finger show up? So what you have here, this is an aerial of the site. Our client's property is right here. You can see Tuskawilla Crossings. You can see that there are rear entry garages. And again, anything 200 feet within that property line is limited to 12 feet in height. This building right here is known as the Savoy. It's a 4-story, 140,000 square feet, multifamily senior apartment building. And there's been this suggestion that we're building this mammoth 107,000 square foot building. That's incorrect. What it is the max floor area ratio on this property is 0.65 on the industrial land use. Extrapolating that out across the acres, the maximum amount of square footage we could build on the site is 107,000 square feet. It doesn't mean we're doing one massive 107,000 square foot building. And even if we were, the suggestion, you heard it multiple times, there's no building, and this isn't the only one. There's a Rise complex in the city of Winter Springs that's 340,000 square feet. It's right next to City Hall, so I'm surprised they're not familiar with it. But this project is closer to Tuskawilla Crossings than our proposed mini storage. So I'd like to introduce that into the record. You heard individuals talk about, we did our due diligence. We would have never bought here, and look, some of you probably have seen me, I've come and represented neighbors before this board, but there was no hiding of the ball. The county's future land use map clearly labels this property as industrial. It didn't get changed to industrial last year after Tuskawilla Crossing was built. It didn't get changed to industrial after Avery Park, which is on the far side across Tuskawilla Drive. It's been industrial the entire time those projects got developed. Avery Park was in 2001, and Tuskawilla Crossings was in 2014. And you heard the city planner comment that there's nothing in those staff reports that talk about compatibility, and I submit that that statement's incorrect. The staff reports for both of those projects from Seminole County are in your backup materials in the agenda. And the city of Winter Springs, when they voted to change the land use to allow Tuskawilla Crossings and to allow Avery Park, not only recognized that the land use in Seminole County is industrial, but said that this land use change and rezoning is compatible with the existing surrounding uses. So for them now to come before you all and say, well, no, wait a minute. Something that could be done in the industrial district is not compatible with the residential that we approved. I mean, that's circular logic. They had a finding when they rezoned and did the land use change that that town center was compatible with the industrial future land use adjoining it. I don't know how they can come before you this evening and say otherwise. You heard somebody mention there's a buzz phrase in land use hearings, competent substantial evidence. You've probably all been briefed on it. I'm not going to belabor the point, but one thing is staff reports constitute competent substantial evidence unless they're just flat out conclusory. I'd submit the staff report before you this evening is far from conclusory. It's multiple pages. It goes through the things. In fact, it addresses the enhancements and restrictions and additions that have been put on this property through the proposed PD to ensure that it addresses any potential compatibility concerns. So just the staff report alone satisfies my client's burden. Then it shifts to the opponents of my client's project. Interestingly enough, what doesn't constitute competent substantial evidence is speculation or conjecture. You heard some folks say, oh, this is going to ruin property values. You never put a mini storage next to residential. Well, everybody in this room was here earlier this evening where a mini storage was approved closer to residential than what we are proposing. It was a bigger project than what we are proposing, and it was a 3-story project. I don't know if they had a height limitation of 35 feet, but our project does. So again, fear and speculation don't ring the bell for CSE. A staff report does constitute competent substantial evidence, and you have that before you this evening. You've heard from nobody who's attested that they're an expert in anything this evening. You heard some issues about traffic concerns. There's a school further to the south. We are maintaining the sidewalk connections. You heard earlier in the other mini storage staff presentation, but a mini storage is an extremely low traffic generator. In fact, at the community meeting, we heard several people, and I was at this community meeting that sort of has gotten thrown under the bus this evening. It was very well run. We stayed there for almost 2 hours. Mr. Axel responded to any and every question that was asked. The host, the Foundry brought in additional chairs for folks. We had large placards up. Anyone was welcome to come up, look at them, take photos. We stayed afterwards so people could take photos of our renderings and the master development plan. So that's a little bit surprising that they would criticize that. But during that community meeting, several people said, well, why don't, there's school children in the sidewalks, and you really should put like commercial use there. Why don't you put like restaurants and retail? And as a land use attorney, I'm sitting there saying, hold on a minute. You're worried about traffic safety, but you're telling me you want commercial and restaurants and retail? That's going to be a whole heck of a lot more traffic, and it's going to go throughout the day at all different times. It's going to cause a much serious issue. But we are maintaining the sidewalks as a requirement of the development order. An individual asked, the Tuskawilla Crossings rep talked about the Walmart size of the building. Again, that's a misnomer. But comment on the community meeting, and I would just like to emphasize, we've gone to great lengths to try to address this. We didn't steamroll this thing through the review process. And we retain an architect who's designed approved projects in the town center of Winter Springs. To design this project, you have the rendering, which the city attorney said there's no pictures of the building. The proposed rendering is attached to the DO. That same architectural firm has designed buildings that have been approved by the city of Winter Springs in the town center. We complied with the town center design guidelines to meet them all, even though we're not in the city of Winter Springs. In fact, the rendering, which is in your agenda packet, but I'd like to show it on the screen. So that's one of the renderings that we've introduced. We've also shown other sides of the building. This was specifically designed in order to check all the boxes to address the concerns that we heard. So you have articulation in the roof lines, you have multiple building materials used, you're using faux and mirrored windows. So there's a condition in our DO, no bay roll-up doors will be seen from outside the property or through those windows. We did the storefront at the corner facing Tuskawilla Drive. So again, we've gone to great lengths. Ones that if my client was doing what was suggested to y'all, we wouldn't have to do any of this. We just say, hey, we meet Seminole County's requirements, move us through the pipeline. And your staff held our feet to the fire and asked us to do this. We went to great lengths and expense to do it, and there are multiple renderings which are incorporated into the DO. That same individual brought up the square footage, but I've already touched upon that. There's been a lot of, it's 107,000 square feet. Again, that's the maximum across the entire site. The Savoy, again, right around the corner, 140,000 square feet, but you didn't hear anything about that this evening, and it's 4 stories in height. You heard a remark that we're putting the on-site septic right up against their neighborhood. That, again, is inaccurate. The master development plan, in a note, comments that the proposed drain field is actually out front the building, between the building and Tuskawilla Road. So it's also a very small drain field. The only bathroom facilities we have are for an office retail use that's capped at 1,000 square feet. So you're going to have 1 bathroom for probably the employees. You heard a remark about the notice. Again, at the community meeting, we comply with every notice requirement the county has. It was brought up at the community meeting, hey, why didn't you mail everybody in our neighborhood? Well, the county has a distance requirement. We comply with that. We mailed out all the notices. We have the addresses. They've been provided to the county. We provided detailed minutes of the meeting, and we did host it in a large enough room. There were about 87 people or so. It was in the big ballroom at the Foundry Church. I touched upon it, but you heard someone say that. Give me one example of a project this big in Seminole County anywhere. Well, all I have to do is point to this evening's agenda, because that proposed mini storage is larger than this one. It was 118,000 square feet, and it got recommended for approval and is closer to residential homes. I want to touch upon just a few of the things we've done to try to address any of the concerns that have been raised along this path. One, we have enhanced buffers on the east side. Again, it's 10 feet on the neighborhood's property. We've got 20 in ours. We've got opacity requirements and the like. We also have the buffer on the front side is designed to meet Winter Springs frontage road standards that they have in their town center. We have no storage bays at all, it's a development order condition, facing to the east toward Tuskawilla crossings. They all have to face internal to the property. Again, as I mentioned, no bays can be visible through the windows, and no bays are supposed to be readily visible outside the property. We also are going above and beyond on light spillage. You heard Mr. Robinson talk about this. The county code is 0.5. We're reducing our light spillage to 0.25. We've also restricted the building height. Again, on the front, it's 35 feet. The only reason we're going to 45 feet for the architectural enhancements is because we were specifically asked to comply with the Winter Springs Town Center requirements. And on the back side, you've got 12 feet. I don't know anybody who really develops to 12 feet in height, but we're going to do it, and we're committed to doing it. You heard, I believe the new commissioner referenced a Ace Hardware project, which is a little bit north of our site. And that was just heard on Monday evening by the city commission. It went to their aesthetic review and was unanimously approved. And I just want to show you the renderings of what that building looks like, because they make it seem, we've all seen Ace Hardware, you think of a little corner store, right? What they approved is not a little corner store. So this is the first page of the rendering. So you can actually see it has outside storage, something that we've expressly prohibited in our use. They have it screened, but we don't have any outside storage of any kind. Our proposed mini storage is also prohibited from renting any moving trucks and the like. Here's the other far end of the Ace Hardware building. Here's how long that building is. It's about 272 feet long. Our building is only slightly longer than this building, our frontage. So again, you can see the articulation. We're doing the exact same thing. If you read the staff report for this, and I'm going to introduce it into the record, because again, it was unanimously approved. They talk about the earth tones, the muted colors, the various materials being used, everything that we're doing on our building. The only thing we're not doing that Ace Hardware is doing is Ace Hardware is not a mini storage. This is really just about a mini storage. So I'd like to introduce these renderings. And just for the record, I'm going to introduce a copy of the public hearing agenda for that Ace Hardware and the staff report, which walks through how that design right there, which I would submit is no different than our renderings that we're committing to, that fully complies with the town center. They have no problem with that building. And just a couple more points, Madam Chair, so I appreciate you bearing with me. Mayor McCann referenced a proposing annexation agreement, development agreement that they sent over to us, which I believe they sent over the day of our community meeting, which was in March 14th. And I would respectfully submit that no one's under any obligation to agree to some unilateral agreement that somebody provides my client and says, here, that somehow we're unreasonable because we didn't agree to it. We've been in this pipeline again since December 2021. And at the day of the community meeting, they provide this development agreement saying, hey, look, we'll give you all these things if you come to us. Oh, except you're not going to be able to do what you've spent tens of thousands of dollars designing and spent over a year going through the review process to get approved. That was the little hook there for our client. So respectfully, again, we're not obligated to accept the city's unilateral terms. Again, I touched upon, we've already used the same architectural firm that's designed several projects in the city's town center, including the Aldi, and there's a Crunch Fitness. And there was lastly an issue, I have two things left, about stormwater. Well, when we have a stormwater called out in our master development plan, you all are very familiar with it. Our client has got to comply with all the county stormwater regs. Our post-development discharge cannot exceed our pre-development discharge from the site. So we're going to have to hold our water on the site, and there's a stormwater plan denoted on the master development plan to that effect. The last thing, and trust me as a lawyer, I hate reading case law hearings and I hate reading statutes, but the mayor indicated, I think he said it was a slam dunk based on this section 171.046, which is it's in the chapter of Florida statutes dealing with the annexations. And he said, oh, well, it's clear as day. They have to come to the city. They got to get services. And as I'm reading this on my little tiny iPhone, first off, it says a municipality may, so it doesn't say shall, it doesn't say must, it says may, annex an enclave by interlocal agreement with the county having jurisdiction over the enclave. I didn't see anybody introduce an interlocal agreement to you all this evening that said, hey, we already have this interlocal to annex this enclave. They've had plenty of time to do that if they want to try to negotiate that. So it's contingent on things happening. An annexation or annex an enclave with fewer than 25 registered voters by municipal ordinance when the annexation is approved in a referendum by at least 60% of the registered voters who reside in the enclave. I'm not aware of any referendum that's been proposed or has gone to vote. And that's it. But those are the things. So you had the mayor come here and say it's a slam dunk. They have to go to the city. It's a statute that he cited, which I've never read until just now, says, oh no, a municipality may do this if one of these two requirements has been met. Neither of those requirements are met. The only requirements that have been met this evening, I submit, and I'm going to close on this, is that we fully comply with the county's comp plan and the county's land development code. You haven't heard anybody, they've tossed around things, the property rights element, that doesn't have any applicability here. But again, the staff report is CSE. I'm happy to answer any questions, and we appreciate your support.
Thank you. Questions of the applicant? Very good. Then at this time, we'll close the public hearing and move to board discussion or questions with staff. Or motion.
I'll make a couple comments, if I can.
Sure.
I recognize that this is not the most perfect use for this location, but it is zoned for it, so that could be allowed. I don't know why people say that it's necessarily a horrible use of devalued property. The Ace Hardware will create more traffic and make more noise than this site will ever make. The self-storage is very low traffic generators. People don't go there very often, so there's not much traffic. There's almost no noise. You heard a lot of sour grapes tonight, too. This property owner has some rights here, it's zoned for it. I know a couple of years ago, there was somebody that tried to do a residential deal here. And the City of Winter Springs Commission always had a policy they won't meet with the developer, which I think is a mistake, but that's their business. The Winter Springs Commission's always been dictatorial, they're obstructionist, and they're arrogant. And I think you saw some of that tonight by they're using the utilities as a weapon, et cetera. And so it's unfortunate that they didn't a couple of years ago, sit down with that applicant and on a residential deal and make a deal and figure out how to get it done. But no, that's not the way they work. So, you know, it's unfortunate that the use, but there's zone for it, so be it. That's my comments.
I personally, I think, I don't like the idea of the utilities being held hostage to the development. I think they should be made available. That would take care of fire, that would take care of their water issues, that would take care of their sewer issues, and I don't think it should be tied to anything if it's available. And that's just my feelings on it.
Can we hear from the county attorney in regards to the two statutes that were mentioned from the city of Winter Springs?
Yes, good afternoon, good evening, Commission. Desmond Morrell, Senior Assistant County Attorney. I did get a chance to review one of the referenced statutes. I believe I still have it up. It was 171.046. And I believe the attorney who was just present, Attorney Spain, did quote it accurately, where there were two requirements that had to be met. And moreover, this is, pointed it out well, it is permissory. So we're using the word may. There's no requirement. There was no shall. However, it is worth noting that the state is looking to promote the idea of enclaves. It's just not a mandatory thing, so. As for the additional statute, I have not had a chance to take a look at it. If we want to reference it again, just so we have it on record, and I can do a bit of research.
I didn't copy it down. I don't know if it's in the minutes or.
I can provide it as
Anything further, Madam Chair?
No.
That answer your
Thank you.
question?
Yes, it
Thank
did.
you.
I'm good.
Kind of. Something feels odd to me about this. I've never seen anything like this. Being on this board or any other time I was working in government in this area. And it doesn't feel like this is the appropriate place to have an argument between the county and a city about something like this. It just feels like all of this should have been taking place before this and not be here at this hearing. I don't know, it just seems like there's something more going on and some reason that it wasn't. I don't know how I feel about that in voting on this tonight. I don't know if, part of me says, well, the appropriate thing then is to move it forward to the county commission and let them, that's maybe a more appropriate place than this, but, at the same time, maybe they need to go back and see what Winter Springs is willing to work out. If now they're saying that we're going to provide utilities, we're going to be, more amenable, more cooperative, as the case may be. So those are most of my comments. I'm still undecided right this very second.
I kind of look back at it, and the developer is doing everything they can to meet what Winter Springs' view of what they want to see driving down Tuskawilla Boulevard. Looks like the developer is trying to meet these standards based on the suggestions from county. Winter Springs just doesn't want a storage facility, which I don't understand either. But you can have Ace Hardware and can't have a storage facility. It doesn't make any sense. They've limited the time of opening and access to the storage facility too, so you're not accessing it after hours. And it's limited lighting. So, and they're going to have the buffers. I go to the basics. What are we to vote on? We're to vote on, can we take the M1 and A1 and make it a planned development, which is what the county suggests that we do anyway, so that they can be more restrictive and kind of have a little more control and flexibility to decide what happens. I would suggest that we move forward with PD and let it be the commissioner's issue.
Yes, I also have the question of, the city's known for a long time that this property is there and that it's a carve-out and that it's, their property is all around it and that a contractor's yard could be put there, and I'm sure they wouldn't want that. So they had a lot of time, I guess, to offer an annexation agreement if they wanted to. So,
I'll make one last comment, and then I'll make a motion. As you all know, I'm a developer, and I live in Winter Springs. I wouldn't develop anything in Winter Springs, ever. I watched the difficulty that people have had to try to work with that commission, and they're nearly impossible. This landowner wants to get something done finally and wants to try, has tried before and failed, and now you're going to take advantage of their zoning, which they have. So that's it. So I will make the motion to recommend the Board of County Commission adopt the proposed ordinance enacting a rezone from M1 industrial and A1 agricultural to PD planned development, and approve the associated development order and master development plan for 4.81 acres located on Tuskawilla Road, approximately 200 feet south of Michael Blake Boulevard.
I'll second the motion.
all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Stacia, you want to do a roll call vote, just to be sure? Okay. That's correct. Okay. Very good. And with that, we'll close the public hearing.
Thank you.
Mary, the only thing left is, do you have anything for the board?
Just on your dais, you have a copy of an invitation to a Planning Academy one-on-one on June 2nd. So if anybody, it's in a COE, so, but if you all are interested, just let me know and we can help you with that. So,
It's the same day as, there's something else on the calendar for that day.
It includes lunch and breakfast.
It looks
though.
identical to what
What is
Commissioner
it?
Lorenz attended.
Friday, June 2nd? What is the date on it, Mary?
June 2nd.
Oh, it is, okay. That's not a problem, okay, I thought it was
What's June 2nd?
the 19th for some reason.
Oh, yeah, I threw it away.
So do you need,
Okay, that's it.
if we're going to register?
If you'd like to just let me know, or email me or Stacia.
Okay, we'll do that. That sounds like a very good thing.
It looks interesting, and I know a lot of the presenters who are doing it, and they're all very qualified people. If I wasn't working, I would have attended myself.
So nobody's going to give you the day off. Okay, thank you.
If there's no other business, then we'll call the meeting adjourned.